Hey Bookish Babes, and welcome to my book nook.
We are monsters. We give and we take.
For those new around here, my name's Rainy. I read all different types of books, so if you're interested in that, like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps my channel grow. Today's video I have honestly been putting off for weeks because I have just not wanted to do the amount of work that was required to put this video. But it is my last video of 2023. I'm always interested in watching other people's 2023 stats and data and like how their year went. And so I figured I needed to do this. Now that I've done all this work, I'm ready to share it with the world because I did a lot of work. So let's just talk about my reading year as a whole. What I read, how much I read, all the different stats and things that you didn't even think you needed that I have in this video readily available for you. So let's dive in. I'm definitely looking at my notes so that I don't forget stuff, okay? So let's talk about my year in books to start. GoodReads always gives us this, and so I always like to analyze it first. According to GoodReads, I read 138 books, which amounted to 47,477 pages read. Pretty nice to me. Almost 4,800, no, 48,000, not sad with it. Shortest book that I read was Hush Little Baby, which was 11 pages. It was a terrible, terrible smutty time. And the longest book was Final Offer, which was my last book of the year, which I read at 585 pages. So almost got to that 600 page mark. My average book length was about 344 pages, which is pretty standard for me. And my average rating of the year, which I'm very excited about, was 4.0. That is fabulous. That is a fabulous rating. You will see when we actually get into the rating section of this that I had a fantastic reading year. As far as some other stats to look at before we really dive in is hours listened was 461 hours. I listened to 461 hours of audio. That is crazy. I had one reread. I acquired 310 books last year. Let's not look at that number. Let's not look at it. You know what? I'm not even going to be sad about it because I'm happy with the books on my shelves, okay? I'm happy with my library. And then library checkouts total were 42. Did I read 42 library books? No. But did I check out 42? You bet I did. Now let's dive into month by month how many I read, and then we're going to analyze the months as a whole. In January, I read 10 books. In February, I read 12. In March, I read 8. In April, I read 7. In May, I read 22. In June, I read 14. In July, it was 8. August was 10. September was 5. October was 17. November was 18. And December was 11. So my best months were obviously May, where it was drastically higher than everything else, 22. That was the month after I had the baby. So I was pumping all the time because I wasn't producing enough milk. I was feeding her nonstop. So I was reading books like crazy because I kept getting up in the middle of the night to pump like every 2 and 3 hours. So I would just read while I was doing it. So I knocked out so many books during that time. October was, of course, a good month because it was spooky season, so I was getting to all the spooky season reads. And November was also a good month because it was my Get a Clue readathon. Like, that's going to help amazingly. And yes, I did participate in Amazing Readathon, and I did not do as well because it was the month that I went back to school, so there was a lot going on then. As far as my worst months go, April, I literally was having a baby. So, like, that's why. July, I was getting ready for going back to school. I keep telling myself I'm going to new memory card, and I don't, so it cut me off. As I was saying, September was only 5 because I got in a slump after the Amazing Readathon, and so, like, that's naturally to be expected. Now, I did used to know, like, which months were actually my best months and, like, the books that I read. I mean, I do know that May, I read Serpent and the Wings of Night and Fourth Wing, so I had a pretty fantastic reading month there. But, I mean, in February, I read Magnolia Parks. I do know that. In October, I read Bring Me Your Midnight. But other than that, like, this is pretty standard. I feel like my year this year, I want to get over double digits in every single month. And so far, I'm at 7 for January. So I think I can still accomplish that. For the top books of each month, here is a picture. We had Respread for January, Magnolia Parks for February, The Diavolos for March, The Simple Wild for April, Serpent in the Wings of Night for May, Sea of Ruin for June, Yellowface for July, a St. Martin's Press title for August, which means I'm not sharing it, Bring Me Your Midnight for September, 7 Year Slip for October, Part of Your World for November, and The Right Move for December. So these were pretty fantastic books. And 5, technically 6, were in my top 10 of the year, and 2 were honorable mentions. So that aligns pretty well. Here is a picture of ratings that I had from best to worst. So I had 6 1-star reads, which accounts for 4% of my reading year. I had 13 2-star reads, which accounts for 9% of the reading year. I had 23 star reads, which goes up to 14% of the year. I had 4 3.5 star reads, which equals 2%. I had 36 4-star reads, which equals 25%. I had 10 4.5 star reads, which equals 6%. And I had 54 5-star reads, which equals 39%, which means 70% of my reads were 4 stars or higher, accounting to that average rating of 4.0. I'm pretty happy with that. pretty stoked. Now, here is a picture of my top 10 of the actual year in order from best to worst. So we obviously have Serpent in the Wings of Night on top, followed by Magnolia Parks, followed by Bring Me Your Midnight, then The Right Move, Sea of Ruin, A Ship of Bones and Teeth, Heartless, Fourth Wing, Brutal Prince, and Yellow Face. So I love these books. These are the cream of the crop. If you want some really good book recommendations, take a picture of this right here. And then, of course, we also have my honorable mentions. These books need to be mentioned as well because they deserve to be recognized as well. We have Six Scorched Roses, Hollow, Cackle, Saving Noah, If We Were Villains, Part of Your World, Still Beating, and We Spread. Now let's get into some other data stuff, like what the source was of my books, audience format, all that different stuff. So as far as source goes, I read 2 pure audiobooks, 19 ebooks, 15 physical, and 106 mixed media, which means immersion reading. I was reading and also and also listening to the audiobook. We've always known that that's my best method of reading, but still good to be noted here. And as ebooks go, I want to have more ebooks for next year because I wasn't utilizing my Kindle enough until the end of last year, and I've already been using my Kindle a lot this year, so I think we're off to a good start. As far as the audience goes, it's no surprise that most of my books are adult. 119 of them were. 1 was middle grade, 3 were considered new adult, and 19 were YA, so I actually read more YA than I had expected, but my main audience format is always going to be adult just because I like reading adult novels the best. As far as the format, I read 3 graphic novels, 1 manga, 125 novels, and 13 novellas. I do normally read novels. I'm not a big graphic novel and manga girly, but I'm starting to get more into that side, so I might read more this year. I just don't always prioritize those. And then for genres, this is actually interesting. I'm going to go backwards from least amount of books read to top amount read, and let's see if you can guess what my number 1 genre was for this year. We had 1 erotic, 1 nonfiction, 1 sci-fi, 2 contemporary, 2 historical, 2 humor, 2 mystery, 3 literary fiction, 23 horror, 28 fantasy, 30 thriller, and 47 romance. Romance beat out thriller and horror. I was not expecting that. I don't think I can call myself a thriller and horror girly anymore because honestly, I'm not reading the latest thriller and horror. It's just not been speaking to me. It's not been slapping as hard as romance and fantasy romance. So I'm honestly shocked. And fantasy beat out horror, which I'm not surprised by that because I really got into my romantasy era at the end of last year. For publication year, it's pretty obvious that I still prioritize the current year that we're in. So 2023, I read 45 books. And 2022, I read 35, 16 from 2021, and 17 from 2020, and then the numbers get significantly smaller. So I do primarily read from the most recent years of 2020 and beyond. That makes sense. I'm wanting to get to those new releases. I'm not feeling myself drawn as much to books that were written a while back, but I'm not saying I won't read them. They're just not as high up the totem pole for me. Now let's get into series, which is something that I'm always interested in. I read a lot of series this year. 67 books were part of a series, which equals 47.2% of my reading year. 1 was considered a companion novel, probably more than 1, but this is the only one that I noted as a companion novel. And then 74 were standalones, which is 52.1%. Now this is where it gets interesting. I started 42 series this year. Started them. And yes, some of them I technically continued. Like Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark, I'm on book 4. Should that have gone under the continued one? Sure, but I did start it this year, so I put it there. So I started 42 series. I'm not 100% sure on how many I continued. I finished / caught up or DNF'd 9 series, and I'm pretty sure out of this whole 9 books, there's only 2 of these series that I'm continuing on with, and I DNF'd at least the other 7. And I continued 1, because I had already read Delilah Green last year, and I read Astrid Parker this year. So I know that I've continued more than that, though, but this is always an interesting stat for me to look into. So I obviously love my series. I really do. For author stats, this is also always an interesting one to me. I read 65 new-to-me authors, which equals 45.8% of my reading. I read 25 authors' debut novels, so 17.6%, so that's pretty awesome. And I read 52 read from before authors at 36.6%, which I think is great because since I only really started reading again 2 years ago, the fact that 36% of my reading was from authors that I had already read from before was awesome, and I love that I was meeting so many new authors as well. And then this is a picture of all the authors that I've read from multiple times this year. So as you can see, the majority of them are 2. Brenna Thumler, Jennifer Hillier, Hannah Bird, Grady Hendricks, Zoya Stage, Elsie Silver, Liz Tomford, Abby Jimenez, Jessa Hastings, Karina Halley, Ashley Winstead, Caroline Peckham, and Suzanne Valenti. And then we get to 3 books each, which was with Sophie Lark, Sarah J. Maas, Lauren Asher, Carissa Broadbent, Eliza Reign and Anna Huang. And then I read Stephanie Garber. I read her entire Caraval series and the first book in her Once Upon a Broken Heart series, bringing her in at 4 books. And then, of course, we know that I read all of Rachel Harrison's books. Every book, every short story that she has written, I read this year for her entire backlist. So that was pretty exciting. It read 6 books for her, and I found out that she is one of my favorite authors of all time. So there are some amazing authors that I discovered here on this list. Like, obviously, Rachel Harrison. Obviously, it's Stephanie Garber. I do not like Anna Huang's Twisted series. I love her Kings of Sin series, or whatever it's called. I really liked that Eliza Reign series, even though it's not really a good fantasy romance. It's just like a popcorn fantasy romance. Carissa Broadbent can do no wrong. Lauren Asher can do no wrong. We know I love SG Maths. I discovered Sophie Lark this year, which is fantastic. I also discovered Jessa Hastings this year, which I'm so freaking excited about. And Liz Tomford, and Abby Jimenez, and Karina Halley, and Elsie Silver. Those are all knock 'em out of the park authors. Zoe Stage, I loved one book, hated the other. Grady Hendrix, I really hated one of these and kind of hated the other. Hannah Bird, I love her. She is an author that I met on Instagram and I love her so much. Jennifer Hillier is one of my all-time favorite authors. And then Brenna Thumler, Sheets was so freaking good. I loved that series so much. Then I thought we could talk about book clubs that I participated in, because I actually participated in a lot, but I decided this year that I didn't have to read every book every month for these book clubs if I didn't want to read them. So from reading Riley, I read Mother Thing and Plastic Monsters. Gave them both 2 stars, stopped reading from her book club. Then from Haley, we had a bunch because I like the books she chooses. We had We Spread, The Last Word, Temper, The Prisoner, The Soulmate, and None of This Is True. And I'm pretty sure I gave every single one of those except for The Prisoner 4 stars and above. So she always knocks it out of the park with her book club. From the Who Did This To You book club, which is from Tori Between Pages, I read Dawn of Onyx in December and was living and loving my best life. For my own besties book club, I read Legends and Lattes and Catherine House. Loved Catherine House. Didn't so much love Legends and Lattes. For book troop, I read What Lies in the Woods, The Only One Left, How to Sell a Haunted House, and Wonderland, and I enjoyed half of those, didn't enjoy half of those, so like hers is always hit or miss for me. From Literally Dead book club, I read The Spite House, which I DNF'd, The Writing Retreat, which I didn't like, Finlay Donovan Jumps the Gun, which I didn't like, and The Only One Left because book troop and Literally Dead did that together, and I only liked The Only One Left from her. So honestly, hers never works out for me, but I still love her. For readathons, for my Battle of the Boy Bands readathon, I did the buddy read We Sold Our Souls. For Haley, uses Haley Ween, I read Night's Edge. Didn't really care for either of these books. And then for my local book club, we read Migrations, had the best time with that book. So I feel like this year I'm going to be even more picky about the books that I read for book clubs. I'm in 2 fantasy romance book clubs, and I'm going to commit to that. But a lot of these I'm not going to do anymore, especially the thriller ones, because like that's just not where I'm at in this reading season of life, and like that's totally okay. And as far as book of the month books goes, I only read 9 books off my shelves. The Writing Retreat, The Soulmate, The Last Word, What Lies in the Woods, The Only One Left, The Whispers, an SMP book, None of This Is True, and Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow. And so I definitely need to be better because I'm getting 2 to 3 books a month from Book of the Month. And this is only like 2 to 3 months worth of books that I read. So that's kind of embarrassing. And honestly, I need to do a lot better than that. Although, all of them got 3 stars and above. So I would say that Book of the Month is a success. And I need to keep doing that, honestly. And then the last thing that I think is fun just to look at is my cover colors just for fun. So I read from 3 other, don't know what that means, 4 brown, 5 orange, 7 purple, 7 yellow, 9 pink, 10 green, 10 gray, 11 red, 15 white, 29 blue, and 32 black. So with that, that is all of my stats that I tracked. I had a really fantastic reading year, like I said. This year I am going into the mindset of not giving as many books 5 stars. Like a 5-star, because I always end up being like, oh, well, I'll just give a book 6 stars. But like, no. Is a book 5 stars or is it not? Like I've already retracted 2 5 stars from this year, which means I haven't actually had a 5-star yet. Because I was like, that book was not a 5-star. Like, it didn't give me the 5-star feelings. So I'm going to be a lot more ruthless this year, and I'm here for that. And with that, I will make sure to see you guys. Actually, I'm excited for BookTuber's best videos coming out on Sunday because I will be finished with the 2 books that I need to read by then. I am claiming it here and now. If you got to the end of this video, let's put a pencil emoji to show that we are studious learners of the stats and the data and the science. And let me know in the comments down below an interesting stat from your reading year. Like, how many 5 stars did you have? How many books did you read? How many pages did you read? Give me something to work with down there. And with that, I will see you guys in a video super soon.